Sandro Botticelli by Denise Vanderbilt. Between the 14th and 17th centuries, changes were taking place rapidly. It was known as the time of the Renaissance. It was a time of change or rebirth of what had become dormant, particularly in intellect. It encompassed art, literature, music, philosophy, politics, religion, and science. Two major components to this rebirth were the spread of literacy through vernacular literature, or the common language for the region, in this case a Tuscan dialect in Florence. It was disseminated by the printing press that produced literature that spread like wildfire. Those that could not read or speak Latin now had the opportunity to learn in their own language. It was a time for intellectual progression, which had a profound effect on where we are today. The second was the changes in art. Many were now studying the art of naturalism and humanism. This new thinking led to the crossroads between scientific reason and the authority of the church, or humanism. And artists were now branching out in the types of artwork. Linear perspective was the new movement, using depth and space to create distance. Larger objects appear closer, while smaller objects appear further away and in the distance. So what is seen on the painting is also what is being seen in real life. There were many supporters of this new era. In particular was one such family who was a great supporter of the arts and humanities, the Medici family. The Medici family was a powerful and rich family thanks to banking and commerce. Because of their wealth and status, they were able to commission many great works of art. The Medici family commissioned many great artists, including Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, and of course, Sandro Botticelli. The birthplace of the Renaissance took place in Florence in large part because of the very wealthy and powerful Medici family. Sandro Botticelli was one of the most regarded artists during the Florentine Renaissance, being able to portray realistically what was observed. During the 1490s, his work was widely imitated. Sandro Botticelli was born March 1, 1445, and died May 17, 1510. He was a restless child who had an imagination that interfered with his schooling, making him an under-par student who did poorly in reading, writing, and arithmetic. His father, realizing he had other talents, sent him to become a goldsmith apprentice for Botticello, the little bottle. Working for Botticello is one of the two theories to where Botticelli gained his name, the other being from his brother, meaning little barrel. Working as an apprentice, he worked on intricate jewelry and crafts. This was an art form and a path that led to painting. His father, still realizing his son had hidden talents, pushed him to become an apprentice to Fra Filippo Lippi, Italy's greatest painter, in 1462. By 1469, he was working on his own and had his own workshop and apprentices by 1470. It pays to have friends in high places. Alessandro was the neighbor of Ser Anastasio Vespucci, who was an acquaintance of Medici. With this acquaintance or friendship, Anastasio most likely recommended Botticelli to Medici, knowing of his commission for the Macanzia project for the high commercial court. This was to be Botticelli's first public commission in 1470. He painted 2 panels of the 7 images of the virtues for the Macanzia. His first piece was the Allegory of Fortitude, which vaulted his career as a well-known Renaissance artist of his time and beyond. It has been said that Botticelli was commissioned to do 2 panels, but there's question as to who completed his second panel, whether it was Piero del Pollaiuolo or one of Botticelli's apprentices. The virtues include 3 Christian values: faith, hope, and charity, and 4 worldly values: temperance, prudence, fortitude, and justice. Shown here are faith, prudence, justice, and charity by Piero. As you can see, these appear rather dull and two-dimensional, while Botticelli's fortitude is very detailed in the draping of the material, her head turned and tilted, in the 3-dimensional forms. Sandro started his career painting religious and secular works, commissioned to create artworks for families, weddings, and parties. His mythical works intertwined their way into existence during this period of enlightenment as the revival of Greek and Roman literature were being studied. As we see some of his work today, it appears to be melancholy, thoughtful, gloomy, and sympathetic. He used tempera grassa, in which oil was added to egg yolk, to make the paint more transparent. He painted in layers upon layers, known as scumble, giving a soft, delicate opaqueness effect that would reflect light. Sandro was known to use copper resonate extensively for its vivid green color. This is the same green patina found on copper when exposed to air. However, it is not stable when mixed with oil and thyme, and further oxidizes and turns brown or darkens, as can be seen in Coronation of the Virgin from the San Marco altarpiece on St. Augustine's green cloak or vestment. He is in the lower earthly zone, middle left, in the Primavera. Botticelli's inspiration for the birth of Venus was in part by the classical poet Homer in his hymn to Venus. However, Angelo Poliziano's reinterpretation is the telling of Venus being born out of the sea foam and blown ashore by Zephyr, god of the winds, and Aura, the breeze, was the inspiration that led him to paint the masterpiece. Angelo Poliziano's poem also inspired the Primavera, or allegory of spring. An excerpt from this poem is, "She is fair-skinned, unblemished white, and white is her garment. Though ornamented with roses, flowers, and grass, the ringlets of her golden hair descend on a forehead humbly proud. The whole forest smiles about her, and as it may, lightens her cares. In her movement she is regally mild, her glance alone could quiet a tempest." As seen in the Primavera and other paintings, his subjects are very graceful and elegant. The same poet may have also inspired his Venus and Mars as well. Another mythological work is the Athens and the Centaur from 1482. Some of his religious works or devotional paintings are the Madonna of the Magnificent or Magnificat, the Madonna of the Pomegranate, the Coronation of the Virgin as seen earlier, the Madonna and Child with two saints, the Madonna and Child with young Saint John the Baptist, also known as the Rockefeller Madonna, in that John D. Rockefeller III acquired this painting in 1925. Saint Sebastian and a fresco, Saint Augustine. This painting definitely reflects the time of Renaissance, scholarly learning while being faithful to God, or the conflict of learning and the spiritual. The adoration of the Magi, and the mystical nature. Towards the end of his career, Botticelli may have been influenced or followed the teachings of Dominican monk Sandro. It was after this time he completed some of the following works: Pieta, the Mystic Nativity, the Mystic Crucifixion. He also worked on the Sistine Chapel, working on frescoes 30 years prior to Michelangelo's. He also worked on scenes from the life of Moses, the temptation of Christ, and the punishment of Korah. Although he painted many secular paintings, and because he had somewhat of a revelation in his religious beliefs, he regretted painting some of his artwork. So much so he burned or destroyed some of his secular or mythological pieces. It is not known how many or which were destroyed, but we will never know the extent of the loss. Fortunately, much of his secular art was in the possession of their patrons or private collectors, which he could not destroy, and we are able to enjoy today. Botticelli had a profound effect on other artists, so much so they studied and imitated his work. They include Michelangelo and Raphael, just to name a couple. Even though Botticelli was forgotten for a couple hundred years, he is still one of the renowned artists of the Renaissance period. Botticelli's paintings are still in high demand. As an example, the Madonna of the Eucharist from the early 1470s recently sold January 28, 2015 for $845,000 at Christie's auction house. The next one that recently sold was the Rockefeller Madonna, the Madonna and Child with young Saint John the Baptist. It sold January 30th, 2013 for almost $10.5 million. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you have enjoyed this presentation.